Hey there, it's Jeff with Choo Choo Camping Adventures. Today I'm going to show you how I install an onboard air system in this 2020 F350. Let's get going. Today we're going to work on the Upfitters. Upfitters. We're going to plug into the Upfitter wiring that connects to this fuse box here. I'm going to unbundle the Upfitter bundle that's under here somewhere, it's buried. And then for the horn relay, we're going to tie into this engine fuse box in the back, which is where the horn relay is. Upfitter bundle, there's heat shrink on it for each end, there's 6 of them. And they're tightly wound, so we have to untape them and get to the wire color that we need according to the manual. Here's the auxiliary switch information in the Ford manual. It's on page 552 in my book. It talks about the Upfitter switches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll show it to you in the video when we look in the engine, but there's fuses in here. We don't have to worry about this box or even removing the lid unless you blow those fuses. Go to the next page and you'll see wire colors and your amperages. We're gonna go with aux 1 and 2, which have 25 amp each. Aux 1 is brown with green trace, and the aux 2 color is violet with orange trace. Brown with green stripe, that's going to Upfitter 1, and then also violet with orange, and that's going to Upfitter 2. Wire snippers, 14 gauge splicers over there, cutters so we can cut some heat shrink. All right, Upfitter 2 is violet with an orange stripe, and we'll just snip right at the end. So now this exposed part will be live if you turn on Upfitter 2. We're gonna test real quick voltage. Bend it away from metal. Make sure there's no possibility of it to touch the metal. Battery to ground, and we're at 12.62. Still the same ground location to this positive Upfitter, which the truck engine is off. So we should have 0 volts, which we do. All right, I got the keys, let's do this again. Only truck auxiliary. Now power is on, flip Upfitter 2, and now we should have power on the voltage test. Same ground location to the Upfitter, 12.28. Perfect. Let's turn off Upfitter. Let's get to work. We're gonna use this butt splice, 14 gauge. We're gonna tap into this and splice a little bit of the end. We're gonna find the right Upfitter going to the compressor switches. Now, how do you tell them apart in a bundle? You gotta prep that. Otherwise, you're not gonna know. So what I'm gonna do is put some heat shrink on the end. Maybe gonna cut that cable short and then splice it into the other side. And make sure you prepare your wire run with some heat shrink on both sides because we're gonna do that too. This does heat shrink, but I'm gonna put a layer of my other stuff on as well. Before I heat shrink the splice and also the heat shrink tubing, we're gonna put a splice on the back connection so we can test voltage real quick. All right, coming into the bed, we're gonna cut the tip of this, which is for the compressor. Here's the butt splice protecting the exposed wire. And now when we turn on the truck auxiliary power, we should be able to put a test lead inside this with the Upfitter 2 switch on and validate that there is voltage coming out. We're doing a quick volt test, and I have the positive lead in the butt splice, and then the negative is on the bus bar. Right now we're measuring 0 volts, which is good. The truck power is off, and also the Upfitter. So I'm gonna go turn the truck power on, and then also the Upfitter, and then we should see this go up. Truck power is now on. We have 0 volts, that's expected. Now I'm gonna flip the Upfitter. All right, that seems pretty stable. Let's validate that the bus bar gets the same reading, 12.22. We'll go to the bus bar, 12.27. Let's try one more time. 12.27. There we go. We have a match. All right, I like when stuff works. Let's leave the back alone for now, and we'll leave these connections alone, and we'll get going on Upfitter switch number 1 for the horns, which is this brown and green stripe wire. Same process as before, but we're adding a couple extra components, and we have to get into this fuse box and do add a fuse, add a relay, and some other things. I'll walk you guys through what we need to do. All right, let's get into this fuse box in the back. It's kind of a tight fit. You just gotta wiggle the lid and then push this cable out of the way. Now what we want is that yellow 20 amp in the back. That's fuse spot number 11. So I'm gonna try to point to it so my hand is not blocking, right there. All right, let's take a look at the owner's manual. Here's the same fuse box. See number 11? Number 11 matches up in the fuse list with 20 amp fuse, and it's horn. What we're gonna do is pull that fuse out, use what's called add a fuse. This goes in the fuse spot. The original fuse blade goes in the bottom, and then this wire lead goes to the rest of your target device. So our target device is gonna be the horn solenoid, but on the way there, we're gonna go into this nylite relay. When we honk the horn, we want the horn power plugged into 1. We want the trigger for the upfitter to trigger and energize the relay. And when that happens, the horn will honk and also the train horns. Here's a quick look at the general wiring for the horn relay. Over here is a battery bank. Not on the picture is the fuse box, and the 20 amp horn fuse number 11 is in there with add a fuse, and the additional wire relay line is going to tie into port number 30. So the battery power, when you honk the horn, 12 volt power is supplied to the bottom port 30. The upfitter wiring is the trigger source. It's tied to upfitter number 1 and goes into port 86. When both of those are on, the relay is energized and sends power to the horn solenoid valve, which is on the top port number 87, and 85 goes to ground. I did some quick sizing with this add a fuse the other night, and it does fit, and the lid closes. The problem is now trying to get out of the fuse box and keep it watertight. So as to not pinch the wires coming out is to chisel out a small little groove in the lid here, as this is where the big fat positive cable comes out. So if I have a wire little groove snipped out right there, then it should work. All right, get a blade remover for your fuse or just use some pliers. Be careful as you're touching stuff in here so as to not ruin other fuses. Grab it lightly, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. It's like pulling a tooth. Now we could put this add a fuse down, keeping in mind the orientation of the wire lead. And notice how it fits within the different fuses like a channel. And then that should give me enough for the butt splice and then the heat shrink. And if needed, I can move this wire back a little bit. I temporarily tested this bolt here on the side to see if it would hold this relay, and it does. The honking horn power, that's going to supply the battery power to the relay. And for the trigger source, we're gonna come from the upfitter. So we're gonna snip this long wire and use some of it as those shorter runs that I just described. One coming off the lead and one coming off the upfitter. All right, here's that run that's gonna go upfitter to the relay. We need to have the add a fuse coming out of the fuse box and enough wiggle room to leave the fuse box, go down the lid, and curve around. So let's give it about 6 more inches or so. The back of the relay uses male spade connectors. So on 2 of the ends, you're gonna need a female spade heat shrink connector. Here's a look at the cable work so far. This is the ground for the relay connecting to the wire lug, and then the back of the spade connector. This is the add fuse coming from the truck horn spliced into this longer lead so I can reach the relay. And then this is going to splice into the upfitter and also connect to the relay. So this will be the trigger power. Right up here, we'll also have a spade connector and connect to the relay. Almost done, almost done. All right, quick update from the onboard air system truck project. But I don't want to give you an update because the bug guy's here and the motor's loud. So I'm gonna do some stuff off camera and come back when he's gone. All right, we're back and the bug guy's gone. While I was off camera, I finished the connections and the heat shrink. So first, let's do a quick voltage test and validate upfitter number 1 works with my heat shrink and tubing. I'm gonna leave this probe so that way I could do it all from within the car, the truck. I always call it a car. Do you guys ever call your truck a car? I've had a car forever and I'm so used to calling the vehicle a car. Anyways, I'm gonna go test. Right now we have no power. Here we go. Truck accessory power on. We should have 0 volts, right? Yeah, 0. Okay. Here comes upfitter number 1. Upfitter number 1. 12.18 volts. That's good, that's good. Double check the battery positive terminal and we should match the same. 12.25, 12.24, perfect. Okay, upfitter works. Now, let's quickly test the horn to make sure we are pulling the right fuse. So the fuse is in right now. We're gonna go honk, listen for it. All right, sounds great. Sounds just like a puny truck horn. Now let's pull this fuse. Oh, there it is. All right, we'll put it right here. Try to honk the horn and we should have nothing. Yes, no power. Back at the table, let's take the original fuse for the horn, 20 amp, and we will insert it into the bottom section of the add fuse. There we go. Let's go test this real quick. All right, let's take the add fuse and we'll temporarily put it back just to test the horn. There it is. I'll try to get the light on it. Do you see it? Now let's go test the horn real quick. All right, working horn power. All right, this is the fuse going to the load side. The horn solenoid is milliamps, so it just needs a fuse for circuit protection, but the Amazon kit came with a 20 amp. I'll have to get a smaller size later, but let's push that in. So now we have 2 fuses, see that? And we'll push it back in. Now when the horn goes off, this line should have voltage without going through a relay first. So we're not testing the relay, we're just testing the add fuse. So I need a helper real quick to help me honk the horn while I test voltage. Let's go do that. Go ahead, helper. Hold it down. Hold it down. All right, 12.3, that's good. I'm gonna go do the relay connections in there. I'll bring it back and then we'll mount it. Here we go, looking at the relay, making some more progress. We have the upfitter, which is the trigger power. We have the battery power, which is tapped into the inline fuse for the honking horn. And then we have the ground. I'm gonna do a quick test and honk the horn again and make sure this relay itself works. Then we can take the other end of the upfitter running to the back and plug it in, and we can go test the back wire as well. Okay, turn on upfitter. Okay, I just heard a click. There we go. Now, we're up here. We have no power. Hold the horn down. Okay, that's good. Turn off upfitter. Okay, it just clicked. I felt it. Now honk the horn again. All right, perfect. We validated voltage. We validated auxiliary switch. And now we need to validate that this wire here is receiving power when we have upfitter on with truck engine with honking horn. Hey, quick update. I'm putting this Alex Tech split sleeving over my 14 gauge wiring. It's kind of a pain to put in, so I did it off camera. And this is actually the part coming out of the fuse box. And as soon as it hits the engine bay outside of the fuse box, that's right about where the tape and the split sleeve starts. So that way it's safe for the engine. This is the negative that goes down to the horn relay. So I need to mount it to the bus bar, and then that way when I'm doing a voltage test, I'll be able to probe the negative and then the positive that's down there. This bus bar has a few different options. The 5/16, or there's these little screw terminals. Since this is a small wire, I'll use a little screw terminal. The horn solenoid only requires exposed wire. There's no lugs or connectors that you need. And I'll cut the ends so they are even. You don't need much length, just a little bit. Give it a little twist. I know the whole truck is off and the upfitters are off and no one's honking the horn. But if all of that was happening right now and I accidentally touched positive to negative, that could create a spark and a short. That's bad news. So just make sure you know who's working on your stuff with you. And as the best safety tip, you should disconnect your negative while you're working on everything until your project's done. But that's sort of annoying because it's hard to go back and test back and forth. So safety and some safety. Just be in the middle somewhere, okay? All right, I have my helper in the car. The truck engine is off and the auxiliary switch is off. Just to validate, we should have 0 volts. Okay, honk the horn. Hold it down. Hold it down longer. Okay, yeah. The neighbors love me right now. Okay, so now we just turned on truck power. Upfitter number 1. Okay, now honk the horn. Hold it down. 1196. Perfect. We have power. Let's get that solenoid down. You're looking at the large horn with the solenoid. That comes off and then we can wire it from down here. This is a 17mm socket. We'll loosen this. Loosen it enough so you can spin down, and now see that screw right there? Once you remove that, the end cap comes off. Let's do that. The Train Horn 230 kit that I got from Amazon comes with an upgraded solenoid valve, and that happens to be the Vortex 6. Down here we can see the wiring instructions. There's 3 probes. One on the bottom is not used, and the ones on the side are either positive or negative. You can swap them out. So here's the end cap we just removed. The screw just slides out, and then there's a rubber seal. So when you push this up against the solenoid, there's 3 probes inside which match up to this drawing. Pry it out, and now you'll have those exposed terminals. So we're gonna wire positive, negative. I'll put it back inside. We'll put the rubber cover on, and then we'll screw it back in. All right, here is the electric cap. Now you need to put your rubber gasket on, and then we can push this up against the solenoid. I'll show you the prongs in a second, and that will energize. Don't worry about the screw for now. We're gonna test the solenoid and make sure it clicks, and then that way we can make sure our wiring is correct. All right, up to this point, everything along the way has been tested in individual steps. There's no voltage test that I'm gonna do this time because the solenoid is plugged in. So what we're gonna listen for this time is, unfortunately, not the train horns. That stuff's not ready yet, but we should hear a click on the solenoid relay for the horn. Remember, power has to be on, the upfitter has to be on. We gotta honk the horn too, and then we should hear the relay open. You ready to go, tester? All right, yes. Let's do it. Truck horn, go! Hold it down. I didn't hear a click. Okay, that's a good sign. Now hit the truck power button. All right, we got truck power, guys. Also, this test should not hear a click. Go ahead and honk the horn. Hold it down. Hold it down. All right, the neighbors love this. Now, flip the switch. Number 1. Is it orange? Is the switch orange? Answer, please. Oh man, it's hard to find good help. Okay, now when we honk the horn, we should hear a click. Honk it, hold it down. Do it, okay, do it faster. Don't hold it down. Honk. Sweet, you guys hear that click? That means it works. Hey, just for a test, turn off switch 1. Now honk the horn. Ah, yes, no clicking. All right, perfect. Yeah, baby. Now that everything is tested, I went ahead and taped all the way up to the solenoid electric cap. Horn solenoid is all wired up. Here's the conduit. Here's the connection into the valve. Take a look at the fuse box and you can see the grooves on the outside of the box. Those match up with the groove as you close. So I need to snip somewhere around here so when the lids close together, this doesn't pinch my wire. Now they say this is meant to be watertight. There's no rubber seal in here. As long as it's secured and clipped down in the fuse box area, you should be good. You would have to have some serious water coming up, or maybe you drove into a lake, which at that point your truck engine is not going to work anymore anyways. So let's snip. Let's get to work. So the lid sits like this, the wire runs like this and is more on the right side, which on the back is the left side. And what we want to do is follow this groove and we want to cut right in here. So I'm going to snip and then pull out some plastic. Hello guys, welcome to the scene where I try to fight and put the engine fuse box lid back in the corner. Let me show you what we're dealing with. Right in there, the add a fuse. Now it's more nicely taped down. There's a spot there on the left, a spot on the right. It passes those 60 amp fuses and then goes right out the channel I need, follows the main positive down. This is the rest of the wire and it will connect to the relay that is currently over here. The lid is a pain in the butt. I've double checked it a couple times, but it's not closing. You want to make sure it's closed because you don't want those fuses to get wet. I'm still running into a few problems, but here's the theory. These two teeth might be a problem. And also, if you notice, the lid is lower in the back. If you look now, there's a new configuration. Turn the add a fuse around, loops around in between those fuses, and then goes out the same path. Let's see if the lid closes now. All right, this is proving to be a pain. I've been testing the lid and trying to shut it and it won't close, but I did notice there's some indents on the wire on this little bend. All right, I am still at it. I'm still hitting something. I have since snipped the base outer layer and I have also filed right here. You can see a little bit of a lip on the bottom base. I'm gonna try to file that away. I was trying to avoid filing the base, but let's see what happens when I snip that fatter part away. Here we go. All right, it is now 9 p.m. I'm gonna regret pulling this cover off, but check it out, guys. I got the lid on. I was able to finally get it to snap. Oh my gosh, it was such a pain. This lid is a pain. Ford, you guys need to move your fuses to where the consumer can easily operate on them. Come on, wiggle, wiggle. All right, guys, here we go. So I had to file a bunch here. The corner closed and pinched on the wire. Now what you want to do is position your wire so it sits right on top of the stud, because over here there's these little teeth, and as they close you don't want it to pinch. So that was my secret. Routing it around, I taped it. The wire rides on top of the stud, and with a little bit of force you get those clamps to click. Next, I'm going to use rubbing alcohol. I'll clean the front where the tabs are, and I will put duct tape all over it just to help keep the lid secure. I think the tabs are good, but that 14 gauge wire, that lead coming out, and all my filing I did, there is a bit of pressure, so I had to push down pretty hard to get the clips to catch, but I think it is watertight. We're good. Just going to make sure with some duct tape. All right, here's a look at the cleaned up wiring harness. I'm gonna have to bundle the Upfitters again and tuck them away. And I'm also gonna tape around this relay and the different connectors. Once I do that, I'll be able to bolt it to the side and I'll show you one final picture. There's the bundled wires and there's the relay mounted to the side. Here's a look at the final bundle of the Upfitters. This is the remaining Upfitter bundle, and here is the split off for the two that I used. Let's put this Upfitter fuse box back on the battery box. My breaker is in the way. I don't want to have to remove it though. I didn't have to take it off to get the Upfitter fuse box off, so I shouldn't have to take it off to put it back. Here we go. Man, what a pain. Ah, there we go. Tuck those Upfitters back under and secure everything else. Let me clean up it, then I'll show you a picture. All right, let's take a look at the engine with all the wiring cleaned up. Like nothing even happened, unless you go to the back corner and you have to do maintenance. But that's okay, we'll ignore that for now. Looks good, guys. Let's go to bed. Here's a quick intermission since I forgot to put this in part 1 and part 2 of my video. Here I am showing a hole that I already drilled into the glove box. In fact, this is going to be where I install the Firestone airbag controller. You can see the parts in previous videos. I had to drill a couple holes and I planned it out so the air lines would run right behind and securely throughout the glove box without hitting anything. At this phase, I'm trying to find some kind of running light. What you want to do is make sure that you are tapped into power, that when you have your lights on at night, you're going to be able to open the box and see the backlight for the air paddle pressure. Otherwise, you're gonna be in the dark and not know the pressure. So simply here, I'm testing the voltage for the lines that are connected to the running light on the bottom for the foot. And that top one I'm pointing to is the green and red wire. I splice into that with my own pre-made wire that I built in my garage. I tapped with that white tapper that comes with the kit. And once I made a ground connection, you can see that the backlight lights up. Perfect. If you recall from last night, I was tapping into this foot light. There's a little light right under here. It taps into this wire here and connects. So I disconnected, I tested the voltage, I found the positive wire. I took the kit's splicer and I ran my own positive wire, which for me is blue, and then my black is connected to a ground. Today's the day we wire the harness for the ARB twin compressor. It has this 6-foot power harness and then also a relay harness, which is meant for air lockers and some other stuff. It's a big spaghetti mess. So we're gonna take it apart. And if you recall, the compressor's right here in the front, right next to the bus bar. So I only need a little bit of distance. The harnesses are in here. Let's get to work. We'll cut them, we'll size them, we'll shrink them together, and we should have power. Yeah, baby. Let's take a look at the wiring harness and summarize what we need to do. Instructions and this whole mess of wiring. So check this out. This first one is the relay harness. Notice the end, purple is for positive, black is for negative. We don't need all this length, so we're gonna clip it short and then make our connections. Now the rest of this is for connecting to the air lockers that we don't need for our setup. So we'll get rid of that and we're gonna shorten this. This kit also comes with an on-off button and you can wire the harness into the back of that as well. But we have Upfitter switches, so we're not using that. Moving on to the power harness. This one is 6 feet as well. We're gonna clip it short and then we'll re-splice these inline fuses in. This is 10 gauge wire for the positives with 40 amp inline maxi fuses. Coming off the source, there's also 2 black negatives at 10 gauge. They splice within the bundle to an 8 gauge. We're gonna get the distance we need, clip it short, and then re-splice in the fuses and connect to the bus bar in the back. Now looking at the instructions, right here, this thicker connector goes to the power, which is battery, but for us it's the bus bars. This small connector, number 2, is the relay harness with a bunch of wires in it, but purple and black is all we need. So we're gonna cut that short and tie that into our Upfitter switch. Here we are looking at the ARB compressor. At the bottom, we have the relay harness plug and then the power harness plug. And we're going to connect into the bus bars for the power and then The relay harness will connect into this upfitter switch for positive, and then the negative coming out of the relay will connect into the negative ground. Here's the relay wiring harness with electrical tape removed. We can see the positive purple wire and then the single black negative, which splices into the other connections going to air lockers and other things we don't need. So we're gonna snip right here and right here. All right, here's the resulting cable. And you noticed I stripped off a little bit extra wire and then I folded it over. That's because the upfitter switch is 14 gauge and I have 14 gauge butt splicers. They may not crimp on this little wire, so I exposed a little bit more wire and then I folded it. So now let's put the connector on, which is a terminal eye lug for this, and then we'll get inside the truck bed and we'll connect this to the upfitter switch. Let's now test the relay, which should still register 0 volts because my upfitter is off. So here's positive probe and negative, 0 volts. Now let's go turn on upfitter number 2. We now have truck power on with upfitter number 2 on. We're gonna test positive and negative, 11.94 volts. Perfect, we have a volt reading. All right, we're looking at the completed wiring loom for the relay harness. This is the connector. It goes through 1/8 inch split loom, and then this is the negative ground. The butt splice for the upfitter is within this section, and this goes to 1/4 inch split loom. And branching off here is the horn solenoid negative. I'm gonna route this behind the thick cables, up and over, and make a connection. Route it up through the middle, horn solenoid negative, compressor relay negative, into the split loom, into the relay harness connector. After doing some test fitting, I don't like how long the positive is. So I'm gonna connect it and reroute my cable. We're gonna just do this the easy way, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, here is the shortened positive, and now I just need to wire loom it. I've already lugged and heat shrunk. The new and improved ARB power wiring harness. Here's our 2 positive leads. Here's the connector going into the unit, and here's our negative. All right, nice and short, nice and tight, wire loomed, heat shrink, and lugged. Here's one more look at the compressor and the bus bar area. And I took the extra upfitter and I bundled that in electric tape and put it right behind the compressor. So now everything looks clean. All right, guys, here's the exciting part. We're gonna turn on the truck engine, we're gonna turn on the upfitter, and then we're gonna listen for the compressor. Now, I don't have anything else done with this project in terms of the airline hoses, so the compressor is just gonna run and run, but that's okay. We'll at least know it works. And while it's running, we'll do a voltage test in the front and the back, and we'll make sure everything's good. Let's go. I should have been on that side, but that's okay. Let's do a volt test real quick. All right, real quick in the front, we're at 13.87. Can you see that? Let's check the back real quick. Can you see that? That's the back, 13.82. All right, let's turn on the upfitter. Number 2 upfitter. I hear noise. Sweet, that worked. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Let's do it again. All right, let's put a clamp on that and see how many amps it's running. All right, here's a quick test from the back of the bed. We're gonna do a volt test and also a clamp test when we turn on the upfitter. 3, 2, 1. All right, that said 13.73 volts and about 32 amps. So let's go measure the front and see if we get the same readings. Okay, same test. This time we're in the front engine and we're reading the circuit breaker. Upfitter, 3, 2, 1. 31 amps, 13.97 volts. I'm gonna go get a volt test in the back real quick. All right, it says 13.78 in the back. Let's measure the front one more time. 13.97. Battery positive on the breaker. 13.97. Battery positive on the load side. 13.95. Right, a successful test. We know all the power works, and mainly we got to test voltage drop as well. It's only 30 amps right now, but once we get the whole airline system and everything plugged in, we should be able to push the limits of the compressor in the 100 to 150 PSI range, and hopefully get up to the 60, 70 amps, and then test voltage drop again. Now, doing the quick numbers, we were reading 13.97 volts in the front and about 13.79 in the back. So quick math, and that's about 1.28% voltage drop. That's pretty good. The minimum is about 3%, and then other things can go up to 10%. So the 2-gauge wire is doing pretty good right now. Thanks for watching part 3 of the onboard air system install. You're gonna wanna watch the rest of the videos in this playlist, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and drop some comments. Bye guys.